And I'd like to start by first introducing Janet Kolodner, who was for a long time the editor of the Journal of Learning Sciences, a journal which has made profound impact, has made a field, really, and now has come to NSF and is leading Cyberlearning, Transforming Education, and leading this initiative for us. Janet.
Thank you, Jeremy. So I want to welcome everybody to our very first Cyberlearning, Envisioning, and Synthesis meeting. I'm shorter than Jeremy is. Okay. Some of you remember that a year and a half ago, in January, Jeremy, Rochelle, and Sherry Shee, and Danny Edelson, who are all in this audience here, some of whom helped organize this, put on a Cyberlearning Summit in Washington, D.C. At the National Geographic Building. The purpose of that summit was to show ourselves and the world what was being accomplished across many different learning technologies communities and to help people have imagination about what the future of learning technologies might be. Between that time and now, NSF has funded SRI and EDC and NORC and anybody else involved in there? And Sherry, who's not at any of those places, to run a Cyberlearning Resource Center, and you will be hearing more about that from Jeremy. It's a resource center with two purposes. One of them is helping the many different learning technologies communities to convene, imagine, synthesize together, and take advantage of each other's expertise and perspectives. And the other purpose of the Resource Center is for keeping track. Okay, for our many research communities, for NSF, and for for all our stakeholders, teachers, developers, curriculum writers, of what we're learning and producing across our many communities. So as part of that endeavor, we're convening meetings every year. In the even-numbered years, we'll have a summit like the one we had a year and a half ago, and in the odd-numbered years, we're having meetings like this one. Usually they'll be in January or February. This year, in June. I didn't fund them until, I thought it was March, but until April. So you might not know, I don't know who's out there in the, in the cyber world, but you might or might not know that NSF funds learning technologies research, cyber learning technologies research and development across a big variety of different programs. So the Cyberlearning Transforming Education program, that's the one that, that I'm the lead on, has a mission of supporting envisionment of the next generation of learning technologies and learning both practical things about how to use and design them and learning more about how people learn. But we have a lot of other programs at NSF that also fund cyber learning. So there are programs in EHR and in engineering that fund the creation of tools and resources and models, that fund research on how to use those well, creation of courses, the technology for particular disciplines. We have the SBIR program that helps companies bring ideas to market. We have programs, the REASE program, the Sciences of Learning Centers, the Learning and Developmental Science program, and probably others that fund basic research on learning. So what we want overall at NSF is that those funded by these programs and those outside who are not funded by these programs but are doing work in these areas to benefit as best they can from the findings and the implementations of the things that are funded across all the other programs and also across foundations and other areas outside of NSF. So this meeting and the meetings we're holding every year are part of a plan for making that happen. And rather than having PI meetings, we are having these summits and these envisioning meetings to bring together NSF PIs from across all these different NSF programs and researchers and developers who are not yet funded by NSF, but who are important to moving the design and use of these learning technologies and our understanding of learning forward. So these meetings, the envisioning and synthesis meetings, and this is the first one, are for the hard work of envisioning what the possibilities are for future learning technologies and how to achieve those possibilities. And there will be a lot of work. There has already been some work, and there will be more work going on at this meeting in doing that. NSF designs its programs based on the questions and ideas that arise in the research communities it funds. So what we try to do is to walk a fine line between providing leadership and following the lead of the community. Okay, so our leadership here comes in funding the Resource Center and helping them convene this meeting, and I want to, at this point, also thank them for everything that they've done to do this. I came over this morning and I said to them, this has all been so easy for me. It's been great. So I want to thank them for funding it. But anyway, our leadership is in funding them and helping them convene this meeting. And this meeting is your opportunity, both for the people who are here and for the people who are out there in the cyber world, to help NSF know what the community thinks is important with respect to cyber learning research and development. It also presents an opportunity for you to meet others who might be interested in the same issues you're interested in, and to get together, to do research together, learn the different perspectives. Also to learn about CIRCL, this resource center, and how you can take advantage of what that resource center has to offer. Okay, so Jeremy asked me to say something about what I think success will look like 5 years from now. And I don't know, 5 years is a long time away, and I don't really know how to think in 5 years. But here are two things that I imagine. Okay, as I said earlier, okay, I want to imagine that 5 years from now, those designing and building the learning environments, the course materials, the courses, the technologies for learning, those teaching, okay, and using those technologies, those people will be drawing on what this research community, on what these many research communities who are coming together have to offer. So that technologies will be designed based on the things that our research communities are teaching, that teachers in classrooms and facilitators in informal learning settings will be doing, following pedagogies, using pedagogies that we have suggested. And that will happen at least partly because CIRCL will be collecting your results, the results of all the research that you guys are doing. Actually, I will be one of those researchers in the future too. Okay, so CIRCL will be collecting the results of the research that we're all doing and synthesizing across those projects, making it easy for those on the outside to know what we're offering and to know how to use that. Second, I imagine that there will be larger numbers of researchers working on what I call integrative projects. Okay, those where they bring together ideas and findings and design principles from across all the many different projects and things that we're learning in order to create learning environments and learning technologies that are more powerful than simply the sum of the parts. And that will happen at least partly because of what the resources that CIRCL is creating. Okay, researchers will come to realize what's possible when they see that synthesis. And it will also come about partly because our NSF programs will encourage it. And that will come through you guys telling us that our NSF programs should encourage it. Partly because of matchmaking facilities that CIRCL will put in place. Okay, and partly because those who might want to use those technologies will be asking, we'll be looking to find those things out. And that will happen because our summits will be showing them what's possible. So really important thing that we want is that those educational technology entrepreneurs out there who are racing ahead of the research at the moment, we want them to recognize what we have to offer and to use us to help them design the next things that are even better than what they have now, okay? And to use the new and better models that we're creating and take advantage of those. Now, some of you heard Joan Farinimundi talk this morning, those of you who are actually here with us in DC, about NSF's commitment to cyber learning, to the design and envisioning of roles technology might play in promoting learning, how to design that technology, how to integrate it into learning environments so it can play those roles. That NSF is interested in learning more about how people learn when they're afforded experiences they couldn't have without technology. That NSF is interested in learning more about how people learn through analyzing the data that gets collected when technology is in place. And in fact, it is true that there's interest in learning technologies and their possibilities across all of NSF. And you are about to hear from two people who will tell you more about how excited NSF is about cyber learning possibilities. Am I introducing or I'm introducing? Okay. The first one of those people will be Myron Gutman, who is head of our SBE Directorate, Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences. And the other person will be Howard Wachtler, who is the Division Director for Information and Intelligence Systems in our Directorate for Computer and Information Science and Engineering, SISE. And he is talking in place of Farnham Jahanian, who would be up here jumping up and down all excited and telling you how excited he is if he were not somewhere in Europe having a good time. So I'm going to let Myron take over in a moment. And I just want to say that I think all of the people at NSF who I work with are looking forward to the envisioning that's coming from this group. And that people in the outside, in the cyber world, will be able to comment on at some point. Okay, so we all look forward to that envisioning and to using what the community suggests in moving our programs forward. Myron.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks to everyone for having us here. It was great to come over today and to feel the amount of energy in the room as I walked up the stairs and heard people talking. And I saw the dots were already there. I'll try to find a place to put. I saw that I had some dots in my too, and I can do that. I want to say that we at NSF very much share that energy and interest. We're just starting now in the weird world of the government. Even though we really only got our fiscal 2013 allocations about a week ago, and no one seems to want to make any decisions about fiscal 2014 anytime soon, we've been working on our fiscal 2015 budget. And it's somewhere in the realm of somewhere between total fantasy and ugly reality. So it's an interesting world to be. But I want you to know that among the things that I've been working on is trying to mediate the fight over who gets to share parts of cyber learning. So you know, there is a program that we call Cyberlearning Transforming Education, which Janet and others run, and which is joint between SBE, EHR, and the SISE directorates. And that's really great, and that's been part of it. But my directorate manages the Science of Learning centers, and we're about to transform. We're very far along in a process to transform how we're thinking about the science of learning. And it was really wonderful because in the only perverse way that one sees how things operate in the government, who owned cyber learning and the science of learning was very much at issue about 3 days ago. I think someone had to sort that out, so that because we both couldn't claim all of it and still get money from OMB. So I think we succeeded. I think we managed to find a nuanced way that you had two sets of parents that were both extremely happy with where you are, and you can look forward to a lot of support intellectually and we hope materially as your work goes forward. The message I'm sending, and I'm sure you heard this from Joan Farinimundi this morning, the message I'm sending is that this is a really important topic for NSF. It's important for NSF all of NSF, and it's important for all of NSF for a whole bunch of reasons. So the main support has largely been, in these areas, has largely been in SBE, EHR, and SIZE, but you can be confident that our colleagues in the other 4 directorates are every bit as committed to the kinds of things that you do, either because they are committed to the technology development issues associated with it, or because they understand that if they are going to advance STEM education in their domains of science, they've got to learn from folks like you. They've got to learn how to make effective use of new technology. So I don't have to speak for the other assistant directors, but I will say on behalf of all of NSF, and Howard will echo this, I'm sure, how glad we are that you're here, and how much we are looking forward to the results of the workshop and the recommendations that you're going to make about the future of cyber learning. This is really important to us. What we want to do with these programs is to better understand how people learn in a technologically enhanced environment, so that whether it's individual use or collaborations mediated by technology, so that we can figure out best how to do that. That's an important role for NSF. NSF, throughout its entire 60-plus year history, has worked hard to advance education in the most up-to-date ways. And this is another contribution. I'm a child of the Sputnik era, somewhat sad to say. And you know, I remember going to school with the emerging versions of NSF-supported textbooks that were available in the late 1950s and early 1960s that really advanced education in science and mathematics. Well, you're producing the next generation of innovations that's going to advance how we teach the next generations of leaders. We want to, at the same time, use the technology that we're developing to collect, to analyze, to share, and to manage data that sheds light on learning, that promotes learning, and how we design learning environments. And I know many of you are engaged in data-related issues, and it is terribly important that we develop the research approaches that are going to do that. And of course, in all of this, we need to be designing new technologies and advance understanding about how to use those technologies. So let me say a couple of words now about why this is so important to my directorate, to the Directorate for the Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences. What we value in this kind of activity, in your activity, is the chance to take what we know about the basics of human behavior, our scientific theories, and explore and test them through real, or in this case, cyber world settings. We want to see very much how to anchor innovation in our theoretical and disciplinary environment with your developments of technology and with the most appropriate mechanisms for hypothesis development, hypothesis testing, and moving to the future. So we take in this program in CTE what we understand about how humans learn and use it to build technologies that refine what we know about how humans learn and improve education. And it helps then across the spectrum of what we think of as the most critical review elements when we think about new proposals. This is both about the scientific merit of scientific programs, about education programs, about learning, which is a fundamental human activity, and about their broader impacts. And I don't want to put you in either of the garages of one of those or the other, where it's just one, or just scientific merit, or just broader impacts. It's across both, and it's valuable. These specific projects, and I had a wonderful look at the projects as I was preparing to come over here today, your specific projects, and I'll only comment on a couple of them, show just how flexible new technologies and the basic science of society and individual behavior can be working together. I was especially interested in the project from Purdue, Iowa, and Riverside that's building better avatars based on what we know about the importance of emotion and gesture in the learning process. These are things that we learn learn about, for example, in our Science of Learning centers, how we've advanced them very significantly. And yet we know that if we are going to have effective cyber education, we're going to have to do even better than we've done. If we're going to not have to have always everything done by a human standing across the room or across the table from you. In the Harvard, Northeastern, and MIT project about social robots in learning, we're developing many of the same ideas and more. How do we use technology to advance learning in those ways? They impress us, these projects impress us through their effective combination of behavioral science knowledge and theory and the most innovative technologies. So to summarize, let me greet you again from the NSF leadership, join in my colleagues here and speaking earlier and those who weren't able to make it yet, with greetings and best wishes for a successful meeting. We look forward very eagerly to hearing what you've envisioned and how we can work together to get to that vision. So good luck, best wishes. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. I'm Howard Wacko from the Computer Information Science and Engineering Directorate. One of the nice things about being your fourth and hopefully final welcoming speech and introductory remarks. Well, I feel comfortable in building on what Myron and Janet and Joan Farinimundi said this morning. Computer science is certainly excited about this whole effort. We have been for several years. Frankly, I'm a little tired of jumping up and down, but believe me, I feel that in my bones. So I'll be brief. First, I want to thank you all for coming here. This is a very important meeting. I think it'll have very positive consequences and outcomes for all of us. I know these meetings take a lot of time. You have to travel, but it's wonderful that you are all here and those that are participating remotely as well. Now, I know that your mission here, you really gathered to talk about envisioning and synthesis, which is the beginning. But I also want you to think about another aspect, perhaps a little unusual at this time, and that's your legacy. What will your legacy be? So it's what you leave behind 2, 5, 10, even 20 years from now that's every bit as important as what you do in the short term. Clearly, there'll be many artifacts that come out of what you're doing, new practices, and hopefully some groundbreaking outcomes. But what else needs to be there? The data, okay? The data. It's essential that the systems we build and the methods we invent collect massive amounts of data about themselves and their subjects. It has to be data that's useful and usable by future generations of researchers. It has to be data that can be mined and analyzed many times over. In case I don't speak clearly, that's data to be mined, not maligned. And that's an important distinction. It has to be good, useful data. And most importantly, data that can be reproduced. I mean, I certainly don't want to read about the projects here in the Journal of Irreproducible Results. That will not serve the way the rest of the science community views this kind of research, or how the nation evaluates its benefits. So please keep that all in mind as you go through your exercises today. I was kind of excited to see number 5 up there, new big data in learning. I hope the left number of dots are those in favor and the right number of those against. But please add this consideration of good and important data as a very important part of your legacy as you move ahead and innovate research in cyber learning over the next 2 days. So thank you again.
So thanks a lot to all of you, to Janet, Howard, Myron. Thanks for those welcoming remarks. I think we all should give a round of applause to NSF for how much support they're showing for this emerging area. In fact, I got the impression that there's really only two kinds of directorates at NSF. Those who are supporting cyber learning and those who wish they could be.
They are all.
Which is, it's great. It's great to know. I'm going to offer some remarks about CIRCL now, the Cyber Learning Center. Let me just get my slides up. And about this meeting, about our synthesis and envisioning meeting. So we're the Center for Innovative Research in Cyber Learning, and our job is to collect together and connect all the separate projects that NSF is funding in this area. And I want to start by saying welcome to your meeting. Our job is really about you. It's about making everyone who is working in the area of cyber learning more effective and better. This is a poster that came from the first Cyberlearning Summit. Who's included in cyber learning? Who does CIRCL serve? And so we think we're using the name CIRCL also as a metaphor. And we think of three circles. So first is the inner circle. And the inner circle is those most directly funded by the Cyber Learning Transforming Education program. So that's most of you here today or in the room are the inner circle. But there's also an expanding circle, which is that cyber learning and CIRCL have been charged to collect throughout NSF those projects which are working thematically in this area. So we're not limited as perhaps a program that serves only DRK-12, focuses only on DRK-12 grants. This center, CIRCL, has the mission to focus on cyber learning, first with Cyber Learning TE and then expanding. And then we also want to think about CIRCL as connecting to a circle of influence. We heard this morning from the Gates Foundation, from SIIA, Software Industry Association. We heard from the Department of Education. These are all further sources of funding, further support sources of programs, and we want to help cyber learning connect with everything it needs to connect to have the impacts that we were talking about today. So it's very important that we have all of those within our field of vision. We also really want to aim in CIRCL to blend face-to-face and online participation. And so I want to again welcome all the people who are participating in this through the webcast. When we did our first cyber learning event in 2012, we had 150 face-to-face people in the room, but 450 people participated through the webcast. And we surveyed both of those, and they both had a really good experience from participating. The one thing we heard is they wanted to interact more with each other, people who are on the webcast. And so this time we're trying to design some experimental features, which Judy will tell you about, to encourage interaction among those people who aren't in the room today. So that same buzz of energy that Myron heard walking up the stairs can be spread across the networks. And so here's a list of some of the things we'll be doing. The webcast, of course, we're creating opportunities for online participants to meet each other in a speed meetup. There'll be online birds of a feather session. And Judy will tell you a bit more about this. Tomorrow morning, we have an opportunity for other folks that are in your projects who would like to have some time with Janet and John Chernovsky and have a chat with them about the program in the area. There'll be a Google Hangout that people can join in on. So you can invite graduate students and others on your staff. And we'll have a virtual town hall meeting at the end of this to help design CIRCL. We started out with a static website to the left, and we're moving to the one based on WordPress, which has now come up and is the URL on the right, circlecenter.org. You can go there. There's tons of information, and Patty and Judy will shortly say more about that. So what's the overall purpose of CIRCL? Well, it's for you. It's to maximize your potential. So we want to nurture community, which is what we're doing here today, among projects and investigators. We want to bring resources to common needs, things that everyone could do better if they had a central group to help pull it together for them. And we want to increase the voice of this community. When Janet spoke of what she hopes for in 5 years, it was a lot about that the voice of this community has a real impact in the world. We want to help make that voice come together and reach all the ears it needs to. Here's what CIRCL will do, and this is our program of work agreed upon with NSF. Convening meetings like this, plus working groups. Brokering, which is to help connect investigators and projects, and as well as connect newcomers who aren't yet in this community. Bring them in, help them meet investigators so they can propose a project too. To work on synthesis by creating a public space that highlights contributions and builds the community. Marianne is shortly going to talk about portfolio analysis, so we have to help produce databases and ways of categorizing the work so NSF can understand in the aggregate what this program is. And then finally, we have to share data. I got a numbering problem there, don't I? Well, and fix Microsoft PowerPoint so it can number things correctly. And of course, how we do it, well, we're really just at the beginning and very open to your ideas. People have been sharing with me already today ideas, and we're very open, all of us. Please come talk to us about ideas for how to do this better. And we do explicitly have a town hall meeting at the end of this to hear your feedback and hopes and dreams for how a resource center can help you. Okay, what's a synthesis and envisioning meeting? Janet's discussed this already, and here's my joke of the day. Why isn't there a 3.14159 in a CIRCL meeting? Because it's not a PI meeting. Hey, that worked. What is it? The purpose of our meeting is to understand who we are, what we know, and where we need to go to make an impact in this field. And this I see as a rapid prototype of a meeting. As others have mentioned, we had a very short time to pull this together. And so we're trying a lot of things, and we will learn, and these will get better. We're combining community building ideas with plenaries, big idea circles, opportunities to network, to meet projects, birds of a feather session, with a real focus on advancing the intellectual work, building a common timeline, figuring out what our driving questions are, identifying the open issues, the biggest opportunities for research to advance, and making concrete plans for what's next. So those are the two cross themes running throughout everything we're doing over these 2 days. Here's visions. There's a very nice set of slides from the Cyberlearning Summit at cyberlearning.sri.com. There's many visions, and we hope this will help advance them further. We also hope that over time the community will develop models that are of learning with technology, really grounded in the sound theory and have the real data, building on the human richness of learning. It's so common to hear people talk about what technology is going to do in learning, but somehow the human richness isn't always there for me. And I think this community can combine the technology richness and the human richness. Supporting engagement within and across settings. Not enough has been said yet about this, but there's a very strong emphasis in the room and in the projects about combining informal learning and formal learning. In the beginning, those were very different areas, funded by very different programs at NSF, and this is one of the programs that bridges the two. And I think that's important, really important. And also that we're focusing on the topics of learning, like Danny Edelson mentioned, topics that have sometimes we've had a blind spot to, that are really important to society today. They have to do with geography, ecology, the environment. And so focusing on what's important to learn, what should students be learning, not just what did they learn in the 19th and 20th centuries. Some of the outcomes we hope you'll achieve in this meeting, well, find partners that will help you take your work to the next level. Maybe you'd like to plan an AERA symposium. Those proposals are due July 22nd. Why not start now to plan a symposium you'll have? Start a working group, and CIRCL can help sponsor technical working groups that continue online. In our last Cyberlearning Summit, people came together and they decided they wanted a special issue of a journal, and that's now real. There's a special issue coming out in AI magazine about AI and education. You could start a special issue. You could start working on a workshop for the International Conference of the Learning Sciences, which will happen about a year from now in Boulder, and give shape to our community. This is just the beginning. We have a set of future meetings planned. There'll be a Silicon Valley meeting to bring some of the West Coast folks together, and especially to network with some of the educational technology startup activity that's present in Silicon Valley right now. We're planning that for January 2014. There'll be a Cyberlearning Summit, very likely in June next year. And then in 2015, we hope to get on the January schedule Janet talked about with the synthesis and envisioning 2. And that's the end of what I have to share about the CIRCL Center. And now I'm going to turn it over to Marianne Becchia, who is going to share some of the preliminary analysis we've been doing about who's part of this community.
Thank you, Jeremy. I am Marianne Becchia. While I'm calling up my slides, I will mention that Jeremy has been calling this Marianne sharing informally when we've been talking about it. And I like that characterization because what I'm going to present is not a typical kind of methods talk, nor is it going to be a set of findings, but it's really in the spirit of rapid prototyping, kind of what we were able to pull together from existing information to get you excited about the kinds of things we want to collect and say about the community. I'm going to get this done. Okay. And also really to encourage your excitement and enthusiasm for participating, because we're going to need your help to really capture the right kinds of information in a timely way. So I'm going to get this to view. Sorry. Slideshow. Where do you see that? There. Can people tell I'm a Mac person and this is a little different? All right, here we go. Okay. And this is just one opportunity to really start describing our activities that are going to be going on over the next year. It's one of many activities that's going to serve each of these goals. So when we say the word portfolio analysis, I think for analysts that may have something very specific in mind, and there's a set methodology we go through, and ultimately Janet may get a formal portfolio analysis report that describes the funded community. But we really want to make sure that information is useful for many other purposes as well. So it's not just this end product report. First of all, it was a tool for us to get to know you very quickly in preparing for this meeting. Many of us know many of you, but we hadn't really looked overall at the portfolio as a set. So this was a chance for us to get a sense of who are these folks. We also want to be able to use information to help generate group activities. How do you want to describe yourselves thematically, topically? What face do you want to put forward to the world? So an example that I'll be showing is as we're generating tags that would be used in a portfolio analysis, that information has been captured very quickly and is available on the website as I'll show you. So it's not just for this kind of back-end technical report, but also reusing that same kind of data again in ways that support you and support communicating with the outside community. In addition, we hope to create some artifacts that would help illustrate who's here, who's not here. Do we have the right people, the right approaches, the right disciplines? Who's missing? Where are the gaps? These won't be the answer, but they'll be tools for reflection. I know Janet's already been doing a lot of it informally, and so we're going to try to bring some additional power and tools to that activity. And finally, as other people have mentioned, there's this knowledge management activity where we really do want to help bring people that are interested in similar topics together. Janet mentioned at one point, having your advisory board, you need someone that knows about X. We should have a way to help you find them very quickly. And also, for example, in today's meeting, we use the topic list to start generating some candidate affinity groups. So it's just kind of a set of resources that we hope will ultimately serve these multiple purposes. So specifically about the portfolio analysis, we started with what was really available on the NSF website, and we took the basic stuff: geography, grade levels, research topics, funding type. We also downloaded abstracts, so there's some information that we generated that is derivative from the information that's on the website, but based on that. What we want to do through today's meeting and the meetings that are coming up over the next few months is really start identifying the set of things that we want to track over time. And we want to be able to aggregate and synthesize and capture that information in ways that's comparable so that we can look for trends and gaps. And I already said enough about generating artifacts for the community in addition to kind of the usual stuff. So here's something that's available right now on the website that Jeremy mentioned. I would call this, I want to give you some disclaimers. This was rapid prototyping. I think the data still needs some cleaning. We need to work with Janet to really define our inner circle, extended circle, and how to capture those. What you're seeing right now is a set of projects that are funded specifically from the CTE project. And we did a little cleaning. There are a number of collaborative projects, and so we ended up, if there were 2 or 3 institutions working on the same projects, we collapsed those. And so what you're seeing here is just one pin per location. They can represent multiple projects. You see that they're distributed across the country with some concentration on the West Coast and some concentration on the East Coast. What you don't see well here, but you will see on the website, is that each of these colors on the pins, there's red and yellow and green, they represent a grant type. And so CTE funds 3 in particular kinds of grants. One is exploratory. They're what they sound like. They tend to be smaller. This is for folks that aren't already PIs and are interested in learning a little bit about the program, just so you have a sense of what you're looking at. Another category is design and implementation projects. Those are a bit larger and have shown some proof of concept. And finally, the integration and deployment projects are really the largest, the INDP. So each of those colors says something about the grant type. So just to build on that a little bit, this grant, 2 things I didn't mention. There's also capacity building and EAGER that the program funds. So this shows you how many grants have been awarded of each type. The big purple, most of them are going to the capacity building. Is that true? No, it's Thank you. I got my colors mixed up. Thank you. Yes, most of them are going to exploratory. There's about 22 projects in that area. There's only 5 or 4 capacity builders and about 10 DIPs. So that's the numbers, and this is how it breaks down by funding amounts. So not surprisingly, since each of those categories has a different funding level associated with it, we see here that most of the funding is going also to exploratory, about 11 million, but a significant chunk is going to DIP, that's about 9.5, and under $1 million is going to the capacity building. So that shows you how the portfolio is broken down by dollars. So grade level served, this is based on abstracts. You want to read it from the bottom to the top, with the bottom being the youngest kids. When you get to grade level not specified, there's not a bar there. I probably could have done a better graph. That's essentially a subheader for the 4 bars that are above that, where they didn't say a specific age or grade level, but they did tell you something about the age of the focus of the grant. And what we're seeing is a lot of the projects are really in middle school. From the abstracts, there was about, I think, 13 or 14 that we just couldn't tell. So maybe at some point we'll come back and talk to you a little bit about structured abstracts and ways of capturing easily information that we want to be able to aggregate. So that was about 20% that we couldn't tell what grade level. Similarly, we looked at subject areas. And most of the funding seems to be happening in science and STEM, certainly, although there is representation from other domains, the humanities. There's a few that we couldn't tell from the abstract. Picking up on Jeremy's comment earlier about formal and informal, I found it really interesting that such a significant number of the grants, close to half, are in informal, with a smaller but similarly large slice informal. And at one of the breaks, I had a chance to talk with Margaret Honey, and it was striking me, to pick up on your comment, Jeremy, how not for the first time, but we're really seeing technology as an opportunity to present models for bridging these spaces. And so what you might have once thought of as informal now has an application in classrooms, and what we might have once thought of as formal is doing a lot of things out of classrooms. So I think that's one of the areas that we want to define and think more about. Maybe this informal-formal split doesn't work as well as it might for other projects. So now we're getting to some of the tagging activities. This is really a question about what you want to be known for, how you want to be classified. We have some of this information up on the web. When you go to the projects page, there's a tagging map, and so we've started doing some tagging. I didn't put up the numbers here because it's very early, but I wanted to give you a sense of the kinds of things we're looking for, and there will be a big ideas session at the end of today that I wanted to encourage folks to come if you have ideas about tags that are research areas that are just missing or that you think are wrong, or you can send me an email. I mean, we're open to lots of ideas, but these are the first we came up with in a kind of bottom-up approach where we looked through all your abstracts and we said, what are we seeing? Let's try to capture some of that. So you see things that probably aren't so surprising, like virtual worlds and games. There is some work going on in data visualization and analytics. I believe intelligent tutors is the one that we found the most, but it could be just that they're very good at identifying themselves as doing intelligent tutor work as opposed to working with robots or games. Similar but different, looking at the media that people are used. And when we use the word media, we're really thinking about tools here as well. And so there's a wide range of approaches that the community is using already. I believe online learning platforms and networks was the bin that had the most checks so far, but I think all of them had at least one check, and so we are seeing a lot of work that spans the range of activity. So this was just something fun. As people registered, they filled out a question that says, what do you hope to get out of this meeting? And so this seemed to be some evidence that we were starting out with some shared goals, the CIRCL Center and the CIRCL community. The themes that really jumped out to us internally were around better understanding other research and projects in the field, building community, identifying future collaborations and directions, and getting and giving feedback. So I know that Wordles are a little bit like reading tea leaves, but some of the main keywords that certainly we think are important came across in the things that you want to get out of this meeting and our work together as well. So we saw that as a really positive sign and a good way to get us started together. I won't spend much time about next steps. My sense is that we have some work to do with Janet where we really do try to operationalize who we include in the inner circle and CTE, who we think about in the expanded circle, what do we want to know about the broader community, and how to kind of integrate those things in a way that makes sense to people that aren't immersed in this world all the time. We'll be doing additional scans, refining codes. From this work, we also hope to pull out some case studies so we can start kind of illustrating the kinds of work that's done by the community. So in summary, I wanted to say that we're starting this really collaborative approach of getting to know you, and hopefully from these quick slides you get some sense of how we're thinking about supporting you and learning about you. One thing I forgot to mention is that we are working very hard to reduce burden. There are lots of different information needs that different stakeholders will have, and so for those of you that have been PIs and have had centers before, we know that you have a lot of competing demands, and I just wanted to make it really clear that while you'll hear different people talking about different things, today we're really working very closely together, and so the different information will be serving different purposes. And finally, I'm hoping that we'll continue conversations around how to classify and categorize outcomes and impacts and some of the really important stuff that wasn't as easy to grab from the existing NSF data set. So with that, I'm going to introduce Judy Fusco and Patty Shank, who are going to talk a little bit more about virtual participation and the website.
While Patty's opening the website, I'll quickly introduce myself. First, I'm going to say welcome to everyone, especially our virtual participants, well, especially our in-person participants. I'm splitting my two hats today. I do a lot of work in the virtual world. I've been at SRI for a long time, and much of my work has been in cyber learning before we called it cyber learning, in online community development and learning in community. This is Patty Shank, and I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Patty Shank. I'm also at SRI, and I've been working on software development to support online community and collaboration and learning for many years, and I'm serving that role in developing the website for the CIRCL project.
So this is the last part of our plenary, and I know we're in between the in-person participants and lunch, so we will try to be quick. But we do want you to know that there is a virtual component to this meeting, and as Jeremy mentioned, we're going to be really working to develop more virtual participation and to have more interaction, both among the virtual participants and eventually crossing the barrier between in-person meetings and virtual participation. It's a really tough barrier. We only had a couple of weeks to really think about it. So we've gotten some ideas. We're going to do some experiments, and we're going to make it better as we go forward. So look for that, and I will need your help to make that happen. I'm going to tell you one way to help us here, if you're either here in person or online, tweeting and using the hashtag cyberlearning, #cyberlearning. That will put all the tweets in one easy-to-find place, and we can review them, and you can review them. If you click on the link like Patty just did, you can see people are already tweeting, and I thank you so much. And keep it going and keep the conversation going. I think it'd be really great if we can get some of what's happening in our thematic working group sessions out to the folks in virtual participation land, and if virtual participation have questions, then they should, tweet back, and I will be monitoring this, and I hope some other folks can step in and help in the different groups.
And just so you know, if you also have questions during the meeting, we're checking this address as frequently as we can if you're having any kind of difficulties with the virtual participation components.
So so tweeting is one way you can get your voice heard. And then quickly, if you're following along on the website, we have a virtual participation page. Today, mostly tomorrow, we have some sessions that are coming up. We have a fireside chat with Janet tomorrow morning at 11 Eastern Time. And we have some Birds of a Feather sessions tomorrow. And the Birds of a Feather session are listed on the page down. Clayton Lewis, Chris Dede, Nora Sibeli, and Britta Cheng are going to be leading sessions. These sessions are still open. You can email your grad students and friends and colleagues that may be interested in any of these sessions, and we'll get you signed up. We do have limited space in the sessions, so sign up quickly, and you will get emails. If you haven't heard from me yet, it's because you've signed up since midnight last night, and I will be giving you guys emails and more information. So it will be coming. And I'm going to turn it over to Patty.
Well, I just want to point out, there's a sign-up link on the page. It has a date, but ignore that. You can still sign up. And the last thing is, as Jeremy pointed out, we've got a new website, circlecenter.org. Soon the website you all know about, circle.sri.com, will forward to this site, but right now they have identical information, and this dynamic WordPress site has additional information on it, such as information about the projects. Sure. So we have a page that right now it's fairly basic. It's got a map of the projects, and then you can actually look through the different projects. This is the map that Marianne was talking about, but you can also look at the different projects under the different NSF categories. They're very simple. They're just the abstracts right now, but we'll make them more structured based on feedback from you. So that's my pitch really right now is we want this site to be something that really supports community engagement and your needs. So please come talk to me about the kind of functionality you'd like. We want to make this website over the coming years be something that's very useful to you, and we'll get people who can get accounts, and they can update their own project descriptions and such. And we'll post a lot of information on the site.
I did want to say one thing. If you don't tweet and you do want to have your voice heard in the virtual world, you can email the CIRCL-info address, and Patty and I will share with the appropriate people. So that is another way for you to chime in. And then as we go forward, as I said, we didn't have a lot of time for planning. We will have more activities, and I will be calling on you for your help. And if you have ideas for virtual activities for future meetings or between meetings, as Jeremy mentioned, for working groups, I'm happy to help you think about those and support those. So I'm looking forward to it.